And the title of the presentation is to see your sales data in a whole new way. So it's just a session that we put together to show you how you can turn your data into information, mostly with CRM, but we'll talk about a tool at the end where it doesn't even, the tool doesn't even care where the data resides. But a lot of the focus is on CRM. So with that being said, let's jump right into this. So this is Sean Jens. He actually helped put this presentation together. He's our development consultant. He actually helped me with a lot with the Power BI piece of this presentation, and we're going to cover that toward the last half of the presentation. And I'm Steve Rybrook. I'm a product consultant. I focus mainly with our oil and gas and distributor CRM product that we sell, and I work on those projects and go work out with all the clients to get that product up and running for them. So that's a little bit about me. So let's jump right into this. So I'm sure you're well aware that data is everywhere, and it's just getting harder and harder to get our arms wrapped around it, because ultimately what we want to do is turn our data into information. So what tools can we use? How can we, use that data to gain insight, to make better decisions? That's what we're going to talk about today. So this is just a list of probably some of the questions that you either ask or get asked, and there's probably hundreds more of them, right? How do I see my pipeline? How do I take a look at my closed cases? When's the last time this customer bought from me? And on and on and on. So one of the questions you probably need to ask yourself is, in the whole scheme of things with information or data, is, where do you fit in? Are you the person out there who asks for information from others? And if that's true, it would be nice to have a tool where you could just get the information yourself to make you more efficient, save everybody a lot of time, right? That's what we want to do. Maybe you're in the boat, you're on the receiving end of that, so you get asked for information. So your job is hopefully to help use tools, put those tools in people's hands so they don't have to ask you. And some of you probably fit both situations. You have to ask for some information and you get asked for other. And you lucky ones fall into the neither category. Whether you have the tools to get at everything you need, you don't get asked, you don't have to ask, you're just out there being as productive as possible, or you're either not in a situation where you need to do one of them. So our goal, which is kind of a stretch goal, would be to have everybody answer this question as neither, right? Meaning I can just get what I need. I don't have to ask anybody and nobody's asking me. That would just be awesome. So some of the things you have to think about when you're considering turning your data into information is really, what's important to you? What are people asking for? What are the metrics that you care about? How do I have to make this data or information available, right? How do I want to access it? Is it through CRM? Is it through some web portal? Is it through, my phone or my iPad? Where do people want to access it? How do they want to get at it? And again, my theme from earlier is, can we make everybody self-sufficient, right? So that's what we want to try to do. And I will show you just some of that today with some of the tools in CRM and also this Power BI tool. So specifically, these are the 5 bullets that I'm going to cover today. We are going to go through within Microsoft Dynamics CRM the filters, advanced find, and personal views section. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about charts. We're going to spend a little bit of time on dashboards, but there was another session that was given earlier today that is also recorded, so you'll have access to that. So again, we're not going to do like a really deep dive into dashboards. We'll touch on reports, and then we're going to wrap up with Power BI, and then we'll also do a quick summary of these 5 tools and try to pinpoint as best we can as to, when do you use what? That usually is a question that comes up. So first we'll kind of cover them, and then we'll wrap things up. All right. So what even is an advanced find? For those of you who know it, you know, I might be boring you a little bit, but for those who are new to CRM or haven't found Advanced Find, it is an awesome, awesome tool. I use it probably every day, and I would say besides folks calling because you know, there's a specific issue with their CRM, our #1 call into our help desk is about Advanced Find. I'm trying to get this. Can you walk me through an Advanced Find? And what we try to do is not only help them get their answer, but we throw them all the hints about Advanced Find so they can just do it themselves next time. The problem is if you don't use it enough, you know, it's easy to just forget. So hopefully you're in a position where you can use it enough or take some good notes where you'll be able to just use it on and on and on. It's really just a little ad hoc query tool where you can go out and come up with some rules to, you know, ask some filters, put in some filters. You're basically asking the system some questions saying, all right, you know, give me the answer. So, and it is only available right now in Dynamics CRM and not too much involved in the CRM 2015 yet. That's coming out soon. But from what I've heard from our technical team, it's even easier when we get into 2015. All right, so let's take our first attempt at flipping over, and we will spend just a little bit of time doing an Advanced Find. So I'm going to do one of these and get over right here to my CRM. So one of the things that you have to have, besides just learning the tool, is you have to have an understanding of the systems you use and or you know, the data that you're after, right? You can't just, okay, I know this tool and not know anything about the information you're searching for. So it's a combination of that. So in my example, I think what I'm going to do is I want to do an Advanced Find over my customers. And in CRM, we call those accounts. So what I typically do is I go to accounts right off the bat. So I could, I had a filter going before, so what I'm going to do is just get back to my list of active accounts. So this is basic CRM stuff. So the first thing I wanted to show you before you even had to think about Advanced Find is for those of you who didn't know, when you're looking at any list in CRM similar to this, there's this filter button over here. And if I tap that, you'll see that each column heading now has this little arrow next to it. So now I can say, oh, I've got this big list of 2,000 accounts. Maybe just as an example, I want to just see and find out how many accounts are Doug's and what his accounts are. So I can just make a rule by clicking this. I can make a rule to say I only want Doug's account. So I just double click on Doug, hit add, and now it created a rule, a filter if you will, that said filter the list to only look at Doug's accounts. So I could do that filter on any of these columns. So kind of quick, it's kind of easy. The rules you can make as generic or as specific as you want. The limiting factor you'll find is that, you know, I can only do it on the columns that are on this view that I'm looking at. So as an example, if I wanted to take a look at all of my customers who haven't ordered, let's say in 12 months, you know, I can't do that here because this is like last completed activity. I want to know their last order date. So I can't do that. So I'm going to turn filters off, and that's probably just a good lead into where I might want to do an Advanced Find. So with CRM, you can have up to 7 commands on this line here, and if it's not there, you can look under the 3 dots and it'll give you the rest of them. So that's where you'll find Advanced Find. And again, I'm not into training here. I'm just kind of showing you the possibilities. So as an example, this is looking over my account file right now, and it defaulted to the view I was just looking at where the status equals active, and I can quickly make a rule that says where I just know the data, so I know there's a last order date. So where last order date, let's say, was, I'll say older than 12 months. Okay, and I can hit results to show me those results, and there's 141 customers who haven't ordered in the last 12 months. So maybe that's all I needed was that answer, and I'm done. Great, maybe I could export this to Excel. I want to do something with this, or I want to open up some of these accounts and see what's going on with them. Whatever, I can just do that. I can just basically be done here. But if I wanted to, I could if I wanted to save this and use this view, quite often, I could actually have this as a view I could tap into without having to, make that rule up every time. And if I was going to do that, maybe I would want to modify the columns that are on here. Like one thing that would interest me would be, I'd want to actually see that last order date. So I can go back to the Advanced Find tab, and I can edit columns. And I can go in here and I can add a column. I'm just going to find that last order date. And I realize I'm doing a fairly simple list here. And if I kind of scroll over, it puts it at the end. Maybe I think that's so important I want that at the beginning. So I just use this little arrow, move it over to the beginning, hit OK. Now if I say show me the results, I have that same list of 141 records, but now I'm seeing the last order date. All right? If I wanted to, I could go back here. I could save this, give it a name, and that would show up on my list of views. I actually did that ahead of time here, so I'm just going to minimize this for now, just to show you that if I go to this little arrow here to look at all the different views on the system, these are all the system views, but down here are the ones I created. Here's active accounts without an order in the last 12 months. So if I click on that, this is that view. I didn't have to do an advanced find because I did the advanced find already, and I saved that view. The other cool thing about views is not only can you just save them to use yourself, but if you think 10 people could use this same exact view, I could have pulled up that view and I could have shared it with 10 other people, and when they went in to CRM and they had their list of views, that view would show up down here as well for them. So views, very powerful. I probably use views every day to get quick answers. Every once in a while I'll actually save the view because I think I'll need that in the future, but 9 times out of 10, I just need to get a quick answer. And so I go into Advanced Find. I just use it all the time. Again, I showed a very simple one here. You can combine up to 2 files, so if you can link 2 files together, they have something common, let's say an account number or an account name or whatever, where you can join 2 files together. You can actually have more than 1 file. And when it comes to the filter, when it comes to the rules, you can have more than 2 when you're determining the filters. I don't know what the limit is on how deep you could go on the filters with files. Okay, so that's Advanced Find. Moving on to charts and dashboards in CRM. So charts and dashboards are really just taking that data and summarizing it and showing it to you graphically, right? Everybody pretty much knows what charts are, so that's easy. And dashboards are simply a collection of charts. It can be a little bit more sophisticated than that, but just in general, a dashboard is a collection of charts. So right now we're talking about just Microsoft Dynamics CRM again, and it's just looking at CRM data. So let's take a quick peek at charts and dashboards. All right, so I'm going to jump back in CRM to my list of active accounts. And a chart that I created, I'm actually not going to go into the creation of a chart because it's really just picking up basically an X and a Y coordinate, and it maps it out for you. So, but I have this list of accounts, and maybe I want to see an easier way of seeing maybe not just Doug's accounts, but how many accounts each person owns. So there are charts over here on the right-hand side. If I do this, I could look at a list of accounts by owner, and I can easily see that. I can also go back to the original one that it defaults to do the first one on this list, and this is just a list, or a chart, if you will, of how many accounts are coded in my system as industrial, as mining. So this is accounts by industry, and what's kind of cool is this chart is just a reflection of the data that's over here. So I can actually interact now with this chart or with this data. So one of the things I can do is I could like tap on one of the numbers here. So as an example, I could look at, I'm interested in my, let's say my transportation accounts. So if I click on this, the list over here changes. And it's only my list of accounts that are coded as transportation. So these are my transportation accounts. And then what I can also do, you see it actually opened up this little window here. I could actually make now a chart of these records if I wanted to. So maybe I care about saying, okay, of all those 88 accounts, who owns them? So I could make a chart of those accounts by owner. So now I get a new chart over here. So it looks like Steve has 87 accounts that are coded as transportation, and Doug has 1. And they're reflected over here. And again, if I wanted to get real crazy, I could say, well, I'm supposed to own all them. Why does Doug own 1? You know, I could click on Doug's. Actually, it's just a little bit too small right here. I have to maximize this to actually click on it because it's so small I can't even click on it. Actually, it's right here. Here's the 1 account. So, and then the other thing, I can just back up to go to my original view. So I changes the view back, changes my chart back, and like I said, I can do this the other way as well. If I change this view, so as an example, I'm going to pick, you know, the list I created before. Show me all of my active accounts without an order in the last 12 months. So here's the list, and here's the chart of industries of that list. So maybe this tells me something. Okay, it looks like I've, you know, a lot of these customers obviously have, you know, stopped doing business with us. Most of them are coded as other. You know, that might tell me that, boy, if we sign up accounts that aren't in like our industry zone, you know, the companies we typically deal with, they're probably either small companies, small customers, buy a little bit and then trail off. So is it worth assigning, you know, getting any customers where we don't have an industry that, you know, we focus on? So as an example. Okay, so those are charts, and again, to make a chart, once you're in here, I can just, I'm not going to actually show you how to do this, but if you do hit the plus sign, it's real simple. You're basically picking your X and Y coordinate. They call it series, and then the horizontal, the category. You pick that, how you want it to look, if you want to, you know, what kind of chart you want, and you save it and give it a name, and then there's another chart. So I'll just close out of the designer. So there's some charts that by default are right in the system. So those are some examples. All right, moving on to dashboards. Like I said, a dashboard is a collection of charts. So again, before I jump there, I just want to point out, remember, you have charts and you have these views of the data. So when you think of a dashboard, I'm just going to jump into one that we've created here. One of the things you'll find when you define or you create a dashboard is you actually pick the chart and you pick the view that you want to start with. So it has to be something that you probably want to measure and look at real quickly. So as an example, here's an opportunity dashboard where we're reflecting some gross profit information. So it's a collection of charts, and it's looking at open opportunities. These are all looking at my open opportunities. This one is looking at my open opportunities, but I'm charting gross profit dollars by department, by user or by salesperson, and then by sales stage. So I can get a quick reading on what's going on our pipeline just by looking at these charts, right? I didn't have to go into my opportunities and then pull up the chart, and right, I just have this dashboard. Boom, I can get some quick answers. These are my top opportunities. These are my wins over the last 12 months by department, and then my wins over the last 12 months, you know, by month. So a lot of different charts. Give me a quick reading on what's going on. The beauty of these is they work the same way as if I started with the data, like I was looking at my list of accounts before. So as an example, I can hit this little button here on this chart, and what it'll do, it'll kind of bring me over to here's the chart, and here's the data. And now I'm almost right back where I was before, except I'm not looking at accounts, I'm looking at opportunities. I could change the view, I could click on the chart, I could drill in, so I can interact with the data starting with a view and pulling up the chart, or from a dashboard. And again, there was a whole session on dashboard creation earlier. You can look at that recording as well. All right. So one of the things that we should think about, if I'm the person who am asking other people for information, and in this example, we have CRM, instead of just asking for the answer, you could say, could you create and save an advanced find for me? Save it as a personal view. Could you create a chart for me? Could you create a dashboard for me that does this? And then you won't have to ask for that information ever again. You'll be able to just, use the tool to get it yourself. If you're the person who's being asked, instead of just giving the answer, you can say, hey, would it work out better if I just made this view for you or made this chart for you? And then anytime this question pops up, you can just get the answer yourself. I think someone will be very receptive to that. So again, our goal is to make everybody a neither, right? Everybody wants to be as efficient as possible. All right. Moving on back to our PowerPoint here. So that was charts and dashboards. Reports. Within CRM, there is a report wizard. I don't really know of anybody using that much anymore because it's simply going through saying, I want a list of records that follows, this criteria, which you can do so easy with an advanced find that I don't think anybody really uses the report wizard much anymore. However, you will find out that there's just a point when, advanced find, charts, and dashboards just don't cut it, and you need to do a report. And I would say here's where I've kind of draw the line from a business person doing it versus some type of programmer or somebody in IT or a consultant doing this. So from a business side, we'd want to be heavily involved with the design of the report, because if you can design the report properly, you can have just a handful of reports that answer many, many questions. So some of the things that the technical team will use with me is, we use SSRS, we use data tools. If you're online, it uses Fetch XML, which has limits to how many records it can find. One of the advantages to being on-premise is you can actually schedule reports. So we're starting to use some IT terms here, some technical terms. So here's where if I can't get what I want with the tools I have, I'll come up with a report I need and then either pay somebody or schedule it with my IT person to create this report for me. So with that being said, let's take a look at one of the reports that we've created. So we have a whole section of reports in our oil and gas product, and I will just pull one up. So here's a ranking report. So we'll get a lot of our clients will say, boy, it sure would be nice if I could just get a list of my customers with my best customer to my worst customer. So one of the things that our development team has done is the files that are used in the report, we give the report this front end, and we let you, it's kind of like that advanced find screen, we let you filter on any field that you want in the account file or in what we call the order history file. So that makes this report very flexible for me, and it will let me do a lot of things rather than just one straight ranking report. So as an example, we know that in the account file, there's a field called industry. So maybe I don't want to rank every single one of my customers. Maybe I just want to see my transport customers or my customers who are in other, right? So what I can do is I can just hover over this field, and I can select on any field in the account file. And I could select, let's say, on industry. And I could say where industry equals, and I could just pick from an industry here. So I could do that. But just for now, I want you to, I'm going to cancel that, and I just want to show you what the report looks like, and then we'll come back to this screen. It's kind of nice to see see the end first. So one of the questions I for sure have to ask you is, how do you want to rank these customers? By gross profit that they contribute, by the revenue that they contribute, or by volume? So let's just say I want to rank my customers by gross profit. What this is doing is generating a report. It's going out and doing some calculations, analyzing the data, and it's going to print or display, if you will. I could print it if I wanted to, or I could export it to Excel. One line per customer with some basic customer information. And then over here, it's showing me the gross profit that they contributed. And here's obviously the highest number going down to the lowest number. It's going down. And then we just have a running total of gross profit. Here's the percentage that they contributed. And then here's a running gross profit percentage. It's a running number. So if I only care about, let's say, my top 70% of my customers, as I scroll down on the report, I can just stop reading when I get to 70%. So you can see there's some things in here that I could not have done with a chart. I couldn't have done with an advanced find. I couldn't have done with a filter. Right? I've got to do some summarizing. I've got to do some, sorting, percentage calculations. There's a lot of stuff going on here. So what are some things that I could do? If I go back to this filter, this is the data I told the report to use. I pretty much said, look at everything in my system, and then the order date has to be this fiscal year. Well, maybe I only want to rank my accounts. So I could say, where I'm the user, or I could just say, I could just pick me. So where the owner is Steve, so I've added a rule. I've narrowed down the customers I want to analyze. And maybe I want just transactions for for a certain time period that I want to control. So there's all kinds of rules here for date period. So I can say something like, on or after, let's say 11/1/2013, and I could add another rule over order date, and I could say on or before, let's say 10/31/2014. And even though I have industry selected here, I didn't pick a value, so it's just going to basically ignore that. I didn't select that. Now I go to run report. It's going to ask me again, how do I want to rank that data once I put it together? We go to run this report, and what I'm getting a quick look at now are Steve's accounts for transactions from November 1st 2013 to October 31st 2014. It's showing me one line per customer, showing me that the same data. So I have, because that happens to be the first report on our list, if you look at this list over here, it's so funny how it seems folks got used to that, and I probably demonstrated that one, that so many people will say that they use that account ranking report all the time. They need a list of customers that's this or that's that or whatever, and they don't even necessarily care so much about the ranking. They just care to get, a quick list of customers with maybe a gross profit or a volume number. And because of that edit filter screen, sky's the limit. Sky's the limit. You figure out what data you want. The only limit you have is that report. It has those columns. That's it. That's what the report looks like. So be creative when you're designing your reports, and I think you can add a lot of value. All right. So that is reports. All right. Power BI, our last topic, and it's a big one. I'll try to pick up the pace here a little bit. I might be going over a little bit. I'm trying to keep this at about 30 to 45 minutes. So Power BI is not specific to CRM here. It's a cloud-based service, so it runs in the cloud, and it works in conjunction with Excel. So it's a new BI tool by Microsoft called Power BI. Some of the components for you, experts at Excel. Some of these buzzwords might be more familiar to you than others, but Power Query, Power View, Power Pivot, Power Map, those are all rolled up into Excel and then become and are used by Power BI, and everything is basically stored on a SharePoint site online. So it's in the cloud. So here's just a brief list of some of the places where the data might reside. So again, it's not just CRM, and I'm sure there are a lot of other places where you could get the data, but these are just some examples of what Power BI can tap into. So Power BI, what you're going to see here is just everything I showed you so far, like times 100. I mean, it's a very big-time Power BI tool. All right, so why use Power BI? So if you think that your company needs a fairly sophisticated business intelligent tool, one of the reasons you might lean toward Power BI is a lot of folks are very familiar with Excel, and that's kind of the foundation of Power BI is Excel. I thought I was fairly good at Excel. On a scale of 1 to 100, I might give myself a 50 or a 40. I'm not into a lot of the fancy stuff, but I'm feeling pretty good about Excel. by the time I got done playing around with Power BI, I think my level of Excel is now probably around a 10. Because just seeing some of the things you can do with Excel are just like, wow. I just couldn't believe it was all Excel I was looking at. So the other thing, as I pointed out earlier, if you are going to get like a Power BI expert, I mean, obviously they probably have some knowledge of Excel, but they also, if they don't know it already, they're going to have to know your data, right? You can't just know the tool. You have to know the data, and you put that two together and become a real valuable resource. You can combine data from multiple places. We kind of showed all that data all over the place, but you can merge that together if you want to. We talked about it using Excel, and it also does its best to use things in a natural language. So, you know, I work with a lot of customers, and, you know, in their accounting system, you know, they might have a field that the people in the billing decided to use, and it might be called, you know, code or something, code 1, user code 1, something that only means something to them, and it wouldn't mean anything to, you know, somebody who's not very familiar with, you know, how that thing was set up. So with Power BI, you can actually translate that to actually call that, you know, salesperson territory or something, if that's ultimately what it is. So then the people who are using Power BI can just go in and use those terms. So the other thing that Power BI does is let you access this information from, you know, it says any device. I would just be cautious, right? Any smartphone, tablet, that type of thing. So mobile again. So why not just use Excel? So what types of things does Power BI bring to the table? There are many. There's just a handful. With Power BI, there's an easy way to distribute the information, distribute reports, and then limit access. Also, we just talked about mobile, and then this natural language. If you're just using Excel to generate some of these charts and use some of those plugins or those add-ons, you know, you just don't get this functionality. But you can do a lot. I shouldn't say a lot, but some of what I'm going to show you, you know, with just you know, with just Excel. All right, here's a slide we pulled right from Microsoft that kind of summarizes them other slides, so I'm not going to get into that. What I would see happening with this slide is if you are interested in Power BI, when you sit down and you're working with somebody on our sales team, they would probably have a discussion with you and go over this. They'd probably even pull in maybe a technical resource to have that discussion just to find out, you know, what exactly you're looking for and what tool best you know, is going to fit your needs. All right, so scenario number 1 here. I'm a territory sales manager. It's the end of the 3rd quarter, and I know the 4th quarter is our worst quarter of the year. I've got to see, you know, how I'm doing so far this year and what my projections look like for the last quarter, because my bonus, my trip to Hawaii, let's say, is on the line. So I want to go into Power BI and see, you know, just kind of analyze the information to see how we're doing. So let's flip over to Power BI now and see how we're doing. So this could be my intranet. This is just basically our intranet where I go off and do lots of things, but there would be a button on here called Power BI. And I could go into Power BI, and again, somebody would have worked to get this all created, and they would have created a lot of different charts. And here's when I saw all these charts and was like, this is all Excel. Wow, this is like cool stuff. So somebody went out and made lots and lots of charts. I was able to go in and say, look, these are the 3 charts I like to see right off the bat when I go into Power BI each day or each week. Today I happen to want to, you know, analyze like the quarter, so, I'm sorry, how far I'm doing so far the year, and then the last quarter, and I know that's on my sales analysis report, which is down here. So I'm just going to click on that. It's going to open that one up. And it may be a little bit hard to read, but what this ultimately shows me is it's reaching out and going to get all updated information, and it's going to put it on this Excel spreadsheet. And what it's showing me is how much revenue I've earned so far today. So this data could have been coming from my back office accounting system, and then what is projected to close this quarter compared to a target I set, and then some percentages. So I'm actually, this is actually a list of opportunities from CRM that are projected to close this quarter, and I'm at 143 million. I've got about 10 million I'm going to close. My target's 150 million. So if this holds true, I'm going to be at 101%, almost 102%. You know, I'm going to hit my goal. If I don't hit any of these, right now I'm only at 95%, and I have got to get to Hawaii. So I've got to hit that goal. So I'm going to analyze these opportunities, and already I see a red flag. This opportunity here, even though it's scheduled to close this quarter, you know, it's been open over 300 days, and I know Veronica's very optimistic, but I don't think that one's going to happen. And if that doesn't happen, I'm not going to hit my numbers. The rest of these, you know, maybe I feel a little bit more comfortable about these, but I've got some work to do. I've got to find some other opportunities and hope that we can get them closed this quarter. So what might I do? I've got a sales meeting coming up with these folks on my sales team, but I want to get prepared for that. So I know already one of the things I want to talk to Veronica about right here, but what else is in our pipeline? What other opportunities might we have open that we could close on a relatively short time? So I'm going to jump back to Power BI, and the first thought that comes to mind, for me anyway, is what type of marketing campaigns do we run that cause us to create opportunities that close quickly, right? So that means I want to analyze my campaign. So maybe there's not charts for that. I just want to dig into the data. So there's a way to ask a people type question with this Ask Power BI. So I can go in here, and I'm actually just going to make sure that I type this carefully and just kind of watch as the system tries to find my answer. So I'm going to say, show source campaigns for closed opportunities ordered by average, if I can type, average days to close, and I'll even say ascending. And I'm just typing, and it's like, wow. So here's a list of all the different campaigns that we've run. And obviously some of these campaigns that we run, like a co-brand with Northwind, any of these, you know, they take, you know, the opportunities that come out of those campaigns take hundreds of days to close. I don't have that luxury. I'm kind of excited about if we do a direct marketing campaign, the opportunities that come out of that close rather quickly. So now I care about direct marketing campaigns. So I'm just going to jump up here again. Now that I've learned, you know, from the data that direct marketing campaigns are the campaigns for me, I want to show direct marketing open opportunities. So it's kind of, as I'm typing again, this list is being created. So here are, about, I don't know, 10 more opportunities that are possibilities for me. Maybe I'll even sort them by probability to close. I could have probably typed in sort by probability %, but I can just click on the heading as well. I don't want to get into this, but over here I could add some different rules, some filters, or pick different fields I wanted to show up, but this is a perfect list for me. Look at this. Now I've got some information here for our sales meeting. When I've got Allie and Diana for sure, you know, they're at 80%. There's a few more at 80%, but these are two biggies. I am going to help them close these deals. We've got to land these deals. So I use Power BI to help prepare myself for the fourth quarter and for a meeting with my sales team. So that's one way to use Power BI. All right, I am going to flip back to my presentation here. All right, that was the demo. Okay, so last scenario for Power BI. Power BI has this mapping tool where I actually can create a short video, and this can be very helpful when you're doing presentations because sometimes those can be very powerful to send a very strong message easily if people are very visual. So if you put things on a map and have it be a little video, I think it can be a very strong communication tool. So what we did is we spent a very short time with Power Map within Power BI, and what we're doing is I've got to make a presentation, And it could be to the sales team, it could be to the board of directors, it could be to management. And what I've done is I've told the system to analyze my opportunities over time, so it's time-lapsed over, let's say, a year, and plot my opportunities on a map by, we did it by state, but it could be by anything. So we have it by state. And then we save that information, and then I just imported or inserted that video into this PowerPoint. So I'm going to change gears now. I'm not the presenter of this presentation anymore. I'm going to be actually a sales manager, flipping through my PowerPoint, and I just got to this slide, and I'm about to talk to the team about this. So, folks, we've got to talk about 3 big areas. Oops, let me just go back here. I clicked the wrong button. I apologize for that. Let's go back. Right here. I'm going to click right here and run this thing. So today is how we're doing on our pipeline for 3 big areas. And in Colorado, things are going fantastic. I mean, we have seen more growth in Colorado. We did not expect this. It's been great. The team we've got out there is doing great. And over the last 12 months, I mean, the pipeline is growing fantastic. In Washington, you know, we just got that new sales manager over there. A lot of opportunities have opened up recently. It took a while to get started, but toward the last couple of months, I mean, it's just taken off like crazy, so we're feeling really good about Washington. Now, you probably guessed it, our problem state, Virginia. You know, Bob retired, and we lost one of our key salespersons, so we have to focus on Virginia. I mean, we've had some opportunity growth early, and then it just slowed down. So that's it. So now I'll switch gears back to my normal presentation mode. So if I was a sales manager, I mean, I could use Power BI to create this little wave file and then use this in my presentations. So pretty powerful tool. I would say it falls under the sexy category, but also, I mean, people are visual. I mean, it can make a great presentation. All right, moving on. We're just wrapping up here. Pricing, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but with Power BI, there is a cost. So again, when you're working with a salesperson, you're going to want to go over this. I believe even it's October 2014 now. I don't know when you're watching this recording, but I know there was a promotion going on at that time, so maybe there's still a promotion going on. All right, so to summarize, we covered 5 bullets. When would I use each of these? This is just according to Steve here. So filters, advanced bind, personal views, that's where I would start. You know, question comes up, can I get it there? That's probably the easiest, quickest way to find an answer. I just use that all the time. When would I have to go to a chart? Well, when you have to summarize something, right? Remember those charts? It quickly took them records and totaled them for me. Gave me a total record count, or you can have total dollars, all kinds of things. So you can create a chart. When would I want to use a dashboard? Well, I would use a dashboard if somebody said, look, these are the charts I want to look at every day, and I don't want to have to go into the system and pull up this view and then find the chart, right? I just want to, here's what I want to measure daily, weekly, right? So those are your main metrics. Throw them on a dashboard. Reports, right? When you can't do it with those first 3, you have to group things, you have to summarize, you have to calculate fields. Now you need a report. If you can't do it yourself, get an expert to do it, design it so it's going to be used for a lot of different ways, and hopefully you don't have to pay for lots and lots of reports. Just a handful can maybe solve most of your problems. And then Power BI, right? If you've extended beyond CRM, you want to access data either in other spreadsheets or data in CRM, data in your back office, data in your scheduling program, wherever your data is. And you've got somebody who can kind of own Power BI and learn that and get it set up and make it easy for your whole organization. That's a really exciting tool that is relatively new. All right, I think that's it. I know I might have went a few minutes over here. I was hoping for like about 40 minutes or so, and I might be at that. But hey, I hope this was very helpful, and I just want to thank you so much for listening today.